Hello again, and welcome back, everybody, to Wait, Are These Guys Friends? I am Mike. I am here with Randy. We're going to argue about some stuff today, and I feel like there's already going to be some heated opinions based on offline discussions. We've had offline discussions. How
Some
are
people
you?
call it prep. We call it offline discussions. So it's
I like to think of, I enjoy it because there have been moments where we'll start talking genuinely. Like this podcast was born out of genuine conversations we would have, and now that has killed our ability to have actual conversations because we have been talking like, we need to save this. No, hang on, wait, no, stop.
stop.
Save it for
No more punchlines.
no,
Stop being funny.
our discourse has to end. That's why we could never actually be friends moving forward at this point, because it is now all performative. It's important to add an extra syllable and T whenever possible into a word.
If it's not being recorded, it doesn't matter. I'm sure that soundbite won't come back to bite me. So
Yeah, only when you run for office, which I'm sure
exactly.
you're going to do. When's that happening? That's going to happen at some point, right?
We could go on a deeper dive, but let's not. So
can I tell you, I know, right? What would a presidential election look like if instead of the issues, we judged people on what did you watch this week?
I mean, it wouldn't be, we'd have the, I don't know, American Idol candidate, and then the, the reality TV / pop culture candidate, and then.
Well, Randall, here's the thing. I don't want you to feel that your political career is on the line, but what did you watch this week?
Mercifully, I can sort of appeal to the masses with most of this, but no.
You fucking whore. You plotted with you. You can't pick a direction. Can't pick a lane. Just have to please everybody.
I don't know. Those votes aren't going to count themselves, man. I got to get the in-betweens on board.
Have some fucking integrity. Watch what you want to watch, and watch it because you want to watch it.
See, that's my general appeal as a candidate, is what I want to watch, is what America wants to watch. So, this is getting into it. Yeah.
I watched 3 hours of pornography this morning, and I think everyone should accept that. And the fact that sorry, where were we?
Mike is these taxes are too damn high candidate of this discussion of this hearing. Anyway, I actually got out to the theater a couple times in the last time. So the family and I went out.
Those are still open? They still
right, and crazy. So
amazing.
One I went and saw recently was Quiet Place Day One. I enjoyed. I'm apparently trying to watch it chronologically. I had not watched either of the Quiet Places. I heard they were very good. I know I just got I should have. I don't know. I've been missing out on the world.
I'm just surprised. I know it's one of those things where I've only seen the first one. I never bothered with the second one.
Yep.
I thought it was fine. Like, I realized some people just went nuts for it, but I guess it was surprising. I guess I just thought that I didn't know there was an audience that would go see this prequel horror film when they had never seen the originals, I guess, I didn't realize that person existed. Good job.
It was more my wife and actually my son watched them recently. I think it was the recency thing, was kind of like, you want to go see it? I am candidly kind of hit or miss on horror stuff. I do not like cheap scares. I do not like other things. And so I was like, I don't know if I want to deal with like gross, now bizarrely, I'll watch like Stranger Things and other things like that. So for some reason, if there is a eeriness or a thriller aspect to it, or 80s horror seems to be okay for me, but certain ones I don't love jump scares. But this was very much it's PG-13. I don't want to call it tame, but it's not. But I enjoyed it. The two leads were really good. The woman from Us,
Lupita Nyong'o.
Yep. And then the guy from Stranger Things, actually, the last season of Stranger Things, the British actor, and I'm blanking on his name, Joe.
Oh, I'm looking at Joseph Quinn. So I gave up on, this is my deeply unpopular opinion, I don't like Stranger Things.
We're gonna fight.
I listen. It's just one of those things where I just that Family Guy.
How much did you give it?
2 seasons, and I just couldn't do it. And everyone's like, but the first two are the best. I was like, I'm bored. I don't know what to tell you. I'm bored. I was bored. I there are so many subplots and so many people that I just like, I'm not interested in you. And not like, oh, I couldn't keep up with them. I mean, like, I was watching all these characters and I didn't latch on to any of them. And I was like, I'm bored. So
Yeah, season 3 and 4 are really like more. They don't tie, like 1 and 2 kind of tie together.
I would
Whereas,
like to note, however, that I think there is a pattern here. I hate the Goonies. I hate the Sandlot. I don't like kids. I don't like kids in things. I don't like watching kids in things. I don't
okay,
like your kids. I don't like you. I don't like your
Merle, do
wife.
you know what I don't
I don't
know?
like to. Sorry. I'm sorry. This turned into a personal attack. We're talking about movies. No, I
Fair.
think
That's
I just tend not to like that, and I tried. And maybe it could also just be that there are certain things that seem tailor made for me. So I have every person on the goddamn planet being like, "Oh, but how can you? That's for you. You love this." That's what I was like. I just don't. I don't know what to tell you.
so.
Maybe
Do
I'm
you
trying to
like
be
do
my
you
own
like the
man.
Carpenter movies from the 80s?
The Carpenter movies, like you're talking like John Carpenter.
Mhm.
What I mean, that's a broad term. I love
Sure,
many John Carpenter movies from the 80s, but he did not live within a genre. That man did so many different things in the 80s.
sure. So,
So
I mean, I'd go because there he borrows. I feel like Stranger Things borrows in the storytelling from some of his filmmaking.
I suppose. Yeah, but I don't know. Tell you who I love is John Carpenter now, who have you looked up what John Carpenter does these days? It's amazing. The man hasn't directed a film in like 15 fucking years. And all he does is get high, play video games, license out his films, and score things. Like plays music and does concerts. It's
Wow.
great. His involvement with the last couple of Halloween movies, which admittedly were increasingly diminishing returns. Like the first of those reboots was pretty good. And then the second one I didn't like. And then the third one, everybody hated. So it was like the second one, I feel like a lot of people were in on, and I was like, I don't think I like this anymore. And then the third one came around, and I was like, you're all with me now. You're all
Yeah.
with me now. But he was the composer for all of those films. That's what he wants to do. So they hired him to make the music, and because he's great at
Wow.
that stuff. So it was him and his kid. But no, a lot of the times he has quotes. He's like, I'm in my 70s. And if they want to keep remaking my movies and pay me to do it, I'm going to take that money and I'm going to sit around and play video games and do what I want to do. That is his quote. And I was like, yeah, I want that life. That's what he was like, anytime a new John Carpenter remake comes out, no matter how bad it is, I'm just like, you did it, bud. You did it. You signed that
Wait,
check. You're getting what you want. Yeah.
is that why that quote's framed on your wall behind you on your camera? Is that why?
The problem is getting that initial media first. So
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
no one wants to remake my short YouTube sketches from 10 years ago that nobody liked. It's crazy.
Well, that could be future arguments about your hatred for kids' movies and stuff like that. Does that even go like? I'm trying to think. So if I list off a couple more, like Little Giants, did you like Little Giants?
Actually, I do, but I don't like them because of the kids. I like them because of Rick Moranis and Ed O'Neill. Those
Fair
guys
enough.
are great. Yeah.
Okay. I'm
The
just curious,
kids are
like
kind of
where it
annoying.
goes. Yeah. I mean, it's their kids most of the time. That.
I and I love Honey, I Shrunk the Kids,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe it's because 3 of the 4 kids are older. They're like teenagers to late. You know what I mean? Maybe there's a line, because I do love that movie genuinely, and ironically,
Yeah.
I love Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It's not to say I can't like a movie with kids in it. That'd be
Sure.
ridiculous.
No,
But
no, no.
what
I'm
I
just saying,
tend
but it's
to-
if it's
yeah.
a genre specific, a time specific, like Bad News Bears, maybe that's because it's a different way that movie is made in the
Right.
70s. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. But
That's a fine movie, but again, to me, it's funny. Is I guess technically the kids are a draw, but then I thought of Walter Matthau, just kind of being grumpy ass Walter Matthau. But I don't know. It's a hang up, and I'm a bad person, and I don't know what to tell you. So it's a shame, because I really got a lot of that flack, because also we've talked about this on here, how I fell out of love with Ghostbusters, right? Because of everything that Ghostbusters has become. I'm tired of Ghostbusters and the discourse and talking of Ghostbusters. It has one perfect film, and I'm exhausted by everything else. I mean, everything else, ever. But then that second season, when it's Halloween, so they're all dressed up like Ghostbusters, I feel like I had 3 months of everyone being like, but did you watch Stranger Things? Because that had Ghostbusters in it. And I was like, shut the fuck up. Leave me alone. So leave me alone. I hate you, and I hate this show, and I hate everything that's happening here. Fuck you.
Wow. All right. Yeah.
Sorry.
The end of that. All right.
Was that too? This turned into my therapy session. That's not till
subtlety
11.
of a sledgehammer here. So
Sorry,
it's,
we're recording at 8. I think I have my therapy at 11. I mentioned, which meeting is this? I'm so sorry. Which one is this?
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's interesting to try to divide yourself from it when you're looking at these kind of discussions in a vacuum to say, it's not that I'm surprised that you don't like a certain type of movie. It's that I love it so much that I have to kind of differentiate myself to say, that's not an attack on my love for it. You know what I mean? Like, and so sometimes no, I know it is, but I'm sure that that's the general reaction where people are just stunned and then they're just like,
it's amazing.
What am I, it's
me.
Like it's their own internal thing.
And I used to be really guilty of that. That's actually something that I think has come with age and maybe fatigue of fandoms. Like not just like Marvel fatigue or Star Wars fatigue or anything like that. I know we're getting into a hell of a topic here, but but I really, as I've aged, I've really gotten to a point where I've realized I'm so sick of the but you haven't or how could you not conversations, and I want to like what I want to like, and I want you to like what you want to like. And I want to have the discussions here with you in this venue, but if I'm in my everyday life, I don't want to shame somebody because they haven't seen some show. I'm just tired of that. And it comes, honestly, from the discourse of what's become around your major franchises, right? Because they became work. Marvel became work. Star Wars became work.
Yeah.
And it's all became a fucking, it became an effort and not a fandom. And it reached a point where everything became that, I feel like. And so I just was like, I'm done. I'm tapping out. I don't want to do this right now. I don't want to, just leave me alone. Stop yelling at me. Randy's holding a knife to my throat because I didn't watch Stranger Things. We're recording in the same room. It may sound like we're not, and often we're not. Today we are. He's holding a knife to my throat and he's murmuring at me, take it back. Take it back. Say you love it. And you love The Sandlot. And you love The Goonies. Yeah.
I have the one with the serrated edge in the other room, but it's this took a turn. So after all that enlightening discussion, that was really fun to get into. I can't believe you haven't fucking watched The Bear yet. No, it's like, and I know we've had offline discussions about this. Like, I know it's built up. Now it's 3 seasons, and it's just like it's kind of hard to wrap around because everybody loves The Bear. I get it. And as I discussed with you, there's a reason it's awesome. It's really, really good. That's another thing that I watched. I binged the 3rd season of The Bear, and it is just, and maybe I think because
how many episodes was this binge? How deep
10.
is that season? Oh, that's a good binge. That's a quality
10.
hour.
Yeah, half hour, 35-ish minutes. So yeah,
that's still a quality binge right there.
Oh, it was I stayed up till God knows what one night, and then fell asleep on the couch and then finished like the next 3 episodes the next morning. But
well done.
I was it was nice to have not that much to do and then push through that. But and probably got looks from when I got home to be like, why didn't you do anything? Oops. I was watching television greatness. So but it is still this. It goes at its own pace, which I really enjoy, where it can speed up and there's these almost anxiety-driven sequences inside the kitchen, just to give you that feel of trying to make, because every dish matters. Like that's how the point is. Everything has to be perfect, and so they're just these painstaking things of the sous chef is cooking something and it's wrong. The cook isn't exactly right, and it's like they throw out a portion of Wagyu beef, and you're like, fuck, that's like whatever, $40 or whatever they just threw away, and the insistence on having the perfection, and just that's what takes over Carmi's mind on needing this to work, to succeed, and it's kind of the hangups of his own built up internal things. That being said, those scenes are within the whole season, and then there are times where it almost seems like it's a longer scene that you would ever expect to see in television, where it's just 2 people, kind of a tighter shot, having a conversation or letting the air breathe in a uncomfortable conversation, because that's what would happen in real life. And so it It's well shot. It's just the score is amazing. It's just there's great music throughout it, and it's. I think they've already said they're releasing season 4, so I'm not spoiling anything by saying that. But that would be my only slight misgiving, is that it did feel like they were stretching a little bit, knowing that there's more coming in season 4.
That's so funny, because I feel like we just said that about The Boys, knowing that they already had one more season coming. It's a real double-edged sword to know you're getting more, but then for them to have to try to figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
You know? I do want to check it out. It looks good. I'm very optimistic about it. I want to pivot and talk about a movie trailer that recently came out. I watched it and was just gobsmacked by it for a bunch of different reasons, and I made you watch it. This is going to lead into our main topic, and this is really what kicked us all off. I am very excited to get your thoughts on the trailer for the movie Here. So we're going to do a deep dive on the entire directing career of Robert Zemeckis. We may talk a little bit about his writing career because they're kind of intertwined. But this all started because I watched this trailer, and I've had so many people watch this trailer. I have just wanted to talk to people about this trailer, about this film. That I have so many, just what could this possibly be thoughts. But quick sum up, and then I want to hear what Randy has to say. This new movie coming out, directed by Robert Zemeckis, starring Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. Basically, they're reuniting the team from Forrest Gump, but they're not using my pitch for the sequel, which is really rude. So,
I mean, how would they bring Robin Wright back?
I mean, I just assumed she'd play somebody else. It'd be fine. So she'd be in it somehow. I don't know. She'd be involved. She'd be all over the marketing, and that'd be part of the draw. Ooh, how'd they get her back? What is she going to be? And I'm like, ooh, you better come see the movie. You'll find out. That's my big pitch. Anyway,
Forrest discovers reanimation. Awesome.
I'm a marketing genius. So, we never got into the future part where Forrest's head was saved in a jar, like on Futurama. And anyway. So that's part of the new. That's for Forrest Gump 3 that we're writing right now. So
running against Richard Nixon for office.
Sir, I met you once. I remember. You cost me my job. You called those men in the hotel. Sir, they were late, and I was staying at the Watergate. All right, anyway.
Golden.
Yeah, thank you. Where's my money? Bring me my dump truck of money for these movie pitches. I don't get it. Anyway, she'd be in it. So, but this movie, she isn't. This movie, she isn't. And the gist of it, the reason why I think so many people are intrigued by it are two aspects of it. The trailer, 3 things I'll note on the trailer. It gives 0 indication of plot. You have no indication what this movie is going to actually be about. What fear is driven in this is that everything in the trailer is visual. And no, don't get me wrong, it is visually intriguing. I don't think I will say stunning yet, but I am intrigued by it because the entire movie seemingly is going to be one static shot taking place in this house or where this house would be, because you see prehistoric times, you see colonial times, you see into the future, and the camera never moves. They show that in the trailer that the camera never moves. It is always this wide angle of what is apparently their living room, and you see it from before it's their living room and after it's their living room, and as time goes on. The other aspect that's really making people talk is Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, for their parts in this movie that apparently takes place over the duration of time, play their characters from start to finish, and I hear Paul Bettany does as well, with some of that great new modern Hollywood de-aging CGI. And do people already have thoughts about that one? So that said, when you take all of that as a package, intriguing concept, high art, art film concept of we're doing something weird and different. And I think a lot of people are like, hey, Tom Hanks, this better be, and they're saying it to Tom Hanks directly, this better be some good fucking CGI because we know what you look like then. So if it looks wrong, we're going to fucking know because you've been famous for a long time and we're already scrutinizing de-aging CGI whenever we see it. We know what you look like. We remember. So this better be real good. And early predictions are that ain't it, bud. That's not it. But that's the trailer. Randy, give me your initial reaction, your thoughts on the trailer, because I'm intrigued by it, and your response was instant no.
Yeah, I think I texted you, wow, I do not want to see this movie. I and I had to think about this for a second because I don't mind going to the theater to see a play, right? Which I mean, I guess they change what the set is, but it's similar concept, right? Like I guess things are taking place in different
You're
places,
right.
but it's a
I
similar
had that
kind of
exact
idea,
thought.
right?
It is like
So,
this structure seems like you're going to go see a stage play.
which I like doing, but I think, and I've enjoyed filmed stage plays. I love Glenn Ross. I love A Few Good Men. Like all these things. But I mean, but you still get the chance to go other places. Maybe I don't like the confined nature of it, even though it's across time. And it's, I would say, an intriguing concept. One they're really, in my opinion, going to have to thread the needle on. Now they have phenomenal performers signed up for it. But I just think like, okay, will the, I don't want to call it a trick, but will these?
I've been calling it a gimmick. It's a gimmick.
Gimmick. Okay, thank you. Will that be enough to hold my attention for longer than like 20 minutes? And if the performances are good enough, maybe, but I don't know. In my opinion, I don't think it will. And that's why I was just like, I'm going to shut this out and just, my mind's going to start going elsewhere and I won't be paying attention to the movie.
That's my exact thought on this. Is this movie is going to, I actually feel like they're marketing this terribly and already, in the fact that all of the discussion and what they're leaning into are the gimmicks, the angles, the shots, the de-aging. All of this is what the trailer is. 2 minutes of look at this unique thing without any indication of any kind of through line plot. And maybe there isn't a plot. Maybe it's literally, we're going to watch years of life and there's no plot in life. As I have a tattoo on my arm from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, life doesn't make narrative sense. So if they're going to show us life, it won't make narrative sense, and maybe that's part of the appeal of the film. Who knows? But you hope that with the cast they have, and we will get into the career of Robert Zemeckis and his ups and downs, and my fear is he a strong enough director? You want to say yes, based on his history. But is he a strong enough director to guide those performances at this state in his life with what he's been doing, where I feel like he is so hyper-focused on the creative aspect visually, not the performance aspect, if you get my meaning, is so much of what he's been doing.
And I have two kind of other thoughts that I feel
sorry,
like
real quick.
Oh, yeah,
Tom Hanks is his muse, for lack of a better term. He's much like Scorsese always had De Niro, and nowadays he has Leo. Tom Hanks is that guy for Zemeckis for a lot of things. So if they're gonna have a pairing that can make this happen, that's probably the pairing. But anyway, please continue.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. I mean, if you're going to shoot your shot and you using one of the three best actors of our generation is a great way to do it. I mean, I will say that, if you're gonna come to play, come with big guns of firepower, that's a good way to do it. This feels like, watching this trailer, that it would work in like 1985 or something like that, or 1990, where you'd hear a voiceover go, "Where are you going to be when you see the cinematic experience of here?"
Oh my God.
Yes,
yes.
I can hear that. And it's, the movie going experience is so different now. I don't know if that's enough to pull people in. Now, people may go see it anyway because of the allure of it, but like Avatar or something like that, or just other things where these great visuals in a preview get somebody to come do that, and it's this kind of coming together thing. The same way like E.T. took over, and then they re-released it, whatever it was, a year later, and it still took over. Those things aren't a thing anymore, and they're still trying to play to that. It feels like it.
You just broke my brain, because that's all I can see now. Is it would have been one of those prestige voiceover trailers where, and I think they did that visually here, where it's one of those trailers where they list everyone who's won an Oscar, and that they won an Oscar, and that they've been nominated, and that, you could always tell when you had a cast and they wanted you to take the movie seriously back in the day, because it would be like, they don't just say Tom Hanks, it's Academy Award winner.
Mm-hmm.
And they fucking did that. You're absolutely right. They're trying to say, look at us, we're whipping our dick out, Academy, here it is.
And maybe it'll work. So I mean, and again, I am, this is just my first impression, and it will probably steer me away from going to see it initially, and then I'll kind of, I'll be kind of hanging back, and if I start to hear word of mouth, but that's kind of cool. Like, that's old school movie, like that's how things go, right? Like, people go on the merit of the movie.
Except for the fact that my ass is going to force you to see this like week 1 or 2 so we can talk about it. I love that you think you can avoid this movie. You cannot avoid this movie. We're talking about this fucking film. So accept that and acknowledge that.
That'll be the greatest episode, where it's just like, Mike's going to be like, I have so many thoughts on here. Randy, let's get into it. I didn't go see it.
Motherfucker, I'm going to come back. I know. Let's see. This releases on November 15th, 2024 to theaters. Give me a second. I'm just checking my calendar because there was something. Oh, you got lucky. You got lucky. I have to come back to the Northeast for a wedding on November 2nd. So if it was that week, I would have fucking stayed. I'd have stayed an extra day and been like, Randy, I got the wedding on Saturday. We're seeing here on Sunday. You got lucky.
I'm still not putting it past you to put like gigs on hold for 2 weeks just to stay up here. Hold me captive to go to the movie theater.
You would be right, but I have a shockingly busy November already. In a nice moment, my dad's actually retiring the next week. It's his retirement party.
Congrats
so
to
November 9th, shout out to my dad. November 9th, he's retiring. He's 64 years old, and he's like, I'm done.
Nice. You'll be back home around then? Cool.
We plotted out. My stepmom is planning a party, and it's not a surprise party. She's like, we are going to get wrecked because your dad's retiring. I was like, that's great. I don't think she used that exact term, but that's what she meant. So,
there you go.
Yeah. So anyway, that's why you're dodging bullets, because nice. I have family obligations. Oh, wait, no, that's the week before. I can put, listen.
Oh, God.
November 2nd, the wedding. November 9th, dad's retirement party. November 16th, Randy and I see here.
My son has a lacrosse tournament that weekend that does not exist yet.
I was going to say, show me your calendar right now. Hold it up to the video that you and I hold together. Show me, as we're seeing here. Fine.
We have 4 months? We have 4 months to debate this. It'll be great.
Oh, there is no debate. We're seeing this movie. There's zero debate. It's cute that you think we're debating.
Yikes.
You're seeing this movie. And on that note, let's talk about a bunch of other movies that you probably have seen. A good deal of them anyway. Because now that we're here, let's dive into what I think is probably a lot of other movies you would like a lot more by Robert Zemeckis.
At the beginning, anyway.
Honestly, you say in the beginning, I think this dude had a run. You say beginning, but there's a sustained run.
No, there's stuff without. There are definitely, the back half is definitely less consistent. I guess I'll put it that way.
Okay, that's fair. So we dive
in terms
right
of what I like, and not in terms of necessarily good filmmaking. But
so it's interesting because he has gone on record. You see a lot of interviews with him talking about him and his writing partner Bob Gale, who worked together so often in the 70s and 80s. They had a really big advocate for themselves in Steven Spielberg. And oh boy, if you're going to have somebody in your corner. Yeah. However, they had their first 2 movies, which were made with support from Spielberg in either a producing role or, behind the scenes aspect, bombed. Neither one of them did well, to the point. And then they also wrote 1941 for Spielberg, which he directed, starring Belushi and Aykroyd. And that movie was famously a bomb. So there was this real stink on them and stink on Zemeckis in the late 70s and early 80s. And my question is, some of these early movies that have a little stank on them, have you seen them? What do you think of them? And we'll start with 1978's I Want to Hold Your Hand, which I remember as like a fucking fever dream of a movie, because back in the day when Comedy Central didn't have original programming, they would just play movies all the time and old SNL reruns. And this movie was on a lot. And I just remember thinking, what the fuck am I watching when I was like 15? Have you seen I Want to Hold Your Hand?
I haven't, so I'm out of touch here, so please.
I Want to Hold Your Hand is like a coming-of-age screwball comedy about 6 teenagers in 1964 from Jersey who want to get to the Ed Sullivan Theater to see the Beatles perform. That's the movie. They don't have tickets. Okay. They want to get to the Ed Sullivan Theater. They want to see the Beatles perform. The lead actress is Nancy Allen, who is RoboCop's partner. I forget her real name, or her character's name. Her name is Nancy Allen. But RoboCop's partner is the lead girl. Marty McFly's sister, who is a regular in the Gail Zemeckis films, is one of the other ones. And Eddie Deason, who is like one of the main nerds from Grease, Eugene in Grease, is one of the other leads.
Okay.
So it is just a bizarre, and he's another regular in the Zemeckis Gale movies. He's in 1941. You might remember him in War Games. He's done a lot of voice acting. But this movie is just, it's like a road trip comedy about getting from Jersey to New York, which doesn't seem like it's that long, but they're teenagers and they don't have tickets to see the show. And it's just a very weird movie. And it didn't do great, but it did well enough for him to keep getting work. You know, Zemeckis, they're like, hey, this kid might have talent, that type of thing. You know what I mean? The interesting thing is that the reason this movie got bankrolled is because of his connection to Spielberg. This was the first movie Steven Spielberg ever produced outside of his own films. This is the one he attached himself to and went, this is the start of this for me. I had a $2.8 million budget, admittedly 2.8 in 1978. It only made 1.9 million back in the box office. It didn't do well, but it had the Spielberg blessing, and people were like, well, Zemeckis is clearly tight with Spielberg. We'll give him another shot. You know, we like this guy. And that led to Used Cars in 1980, which I had not watched in a long time. This is the one I rewatched yesterday to be up on this. I was like, I need to give that movie another shake. Because I remember not liking it, much like most of the country. And I was -3 when it came out.
Yeah.
But Used Cars to me. Have you seen Used Cars in 1980? I know we're not quite to the golden era yet, so I understand if you're not quite there.
It's one of those like pieces where I'm thinking like old school, like the Fox affiliate before it was a Fox affiliate where they would just put movies on over the weekends, and Used Cars was one of the ones on. So as a 7-year-old, I'm watching a 30-minute snippet of something kind of while only half paying attention. So I have varying memories of it, but not much.
And also this movie is lewd as fuck. So it's not that great to begin with, and to watch a network edit of it, I can't fathom. Because like the inciting incident of this movie, like a half hour in, is like a naked woman on a TV commercial. Like she accidentally gets her top ripped off, and that's like how their used car lot starts getting business. Is her tits are flying around, and it's like I was like, how you can't air that in network TV? How do you even get around that? But
that's a different time.
So it's interesting though. But I've always been fascinated. The reason I wanted to watch this one again is because when you just read the cast list for this, Michael McKean, Joe Flaherty, who was the lead guy? He was in
Kurt Russell, right?
No, sorry, lead old guy. I was thinking it was
Jack
plays
Warden,
the Fuchs
right?
brothers, Jack Warden. But yes, and it's Kurt Russell, and it's early '80s, charismatic. 2 years before The Thing, Kurt Russell.
Yeah,
like this is Kurt Russell. Also, by the way, you think about this movie in 1980 being as lewd as it is and what it was. This is Kurt Russell's swing because he was a Disney kid. He was a Disney star in the 70s. He made those Disney TV movies. He was a kid actor. This is Kurt Russell's I'm going to go for it, you know? And for him, it's probably the best type of thing, right? Because also Elvis got him out of that. He did the TV movie Elvis. John Carpenter, by the way. There you go.
Yeah.
So, but just saying, as it all ties together.
Of course.
Which is Kurt Russell's amazing, but this is also Kurt Russell taking a swing.
Yeah.
because the next year he would do a better swing in Escape from New York, and then The Thing the next year after that. And so really it would turn out to be his relationship with John Carpenter that bore fruit to Kurt Russell becoming a respected adult actor, not what he did here with Zemeckis, but it was that first attempt. And I guess the reason I to dial into, I'm talking about all these reasons this movie matters for Hollywood and for what it meant for these people's careers. You'll notice I'm not actually talking about the movie, because the movie itself is kind of insufferable. It's the lewdness of it, and I watched 40 minutes of this, of Kurt Russell in his smarmy, fast-talking used car salesman mode, and I was like, I'm exhausted. I don't want to watch you anymore.
Yeah.
Like you're not. It's not that you're not likable. You're Kurt Russell. You're immensely likable in everything that you do. You're not in a good movie, and this movie is just you're losing me hard. Yeah. The plot of Used Cars, incidentally, for anyone that is still like, I'm going to give this a shot.
Good luck.
Is Kurt Russell is, a used car salesman who decided he wants to run for state senate, and he needs money to pay off debts to run for state senate because they're very blatant. They're saying that you can buy the Senate seat for like $15,000. So he's going to try to raise the money for that. The Jack Warden is playing identical twin brothers, one good, one evil. They both own competing car lots, and they kind of play a Weekend at Bernie's, in that the good one dies and Kurt Russell hides it to try to further not lose the lot to the evil brother and further his plans. It's a weird fucking movie. So it also did not do well. It did better than I Want to Hold Your Hand. It had an $8 million budget and made $12 million, but it wasn't great. It was another one, though, executive produced by Steven Spielberg, directed by Zemeckis, written by Zemeckis and Gale. And then the next year they did 1941 for Spielberg writing it. And when that one bombed, that's when famously Spielberg had came to them and they're like, let's do this Back to the Future. And they went, no. They went to Spielberg. No, because everything we're doing turns to poison. Like we're not going to take this script that we love, this concept we love, with you right now. We have to go out and do something that's not a fucking disaster.
Yep.
And that turned out to be Romancing the Stone, which is a lot of fucking fun.
Delightful
Romancing the
movie.
Stone is really fun. Sounds like you now are in on this one. You're aware of Romancing the Stone. You know,
big fan. Yeah, I actually really like it.
And you look at that cast. It's Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner, Danny DeVito. And by the way, as a kid, I got Overboard and Romancing the Stone confused, just because I was dumb. They're not the same movie.
Okay.
But I used to get...
There's a boat in both of them.
That's probably why. And it was Kurt Russell with... Who was Goldie Hawn wound up. That's how they met. And he was like a roguish thing, and they wound up having their own thing. And then I think I got it confused with Michael Douglas, who was roguish and was with Kathleen Turner. However, Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas have a much nicer relationship than Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell had in Overboard.
Yes.
So, and this movie has Danny DeVito, which, you can't shit on Danny DeVito. 80s Danny DeVito, crushing it. Loving it.
Yeah. This is, if you call that, like, you call a movie like a rollicking good time, quote unquote, like, this movie's just fun. Like, it just, there's a lot of, it takes what Raiders and, Temple of Doom, like the fun stuff that's going on there. I feel like it borrows some from that and that swashbuckling kind of adventure stuff. It feels like that afternoon serial.
They wanted to make a romantic comedy Indiana Jones, and they did. That's what they did. They made a romantic comedy Indiana Jones, because Kathleen Turner is a romance novelist who writes all of these scenarios she has never been in. We're going to talk about these things. Her sister is kidnapped. She goes off, and then Michael Douglas is the big swashbuckling hero who's going to save the day and make it all happen. And, they fall for each other, as they are wont to do. So, but it's just really fun.
I have a fun tie to this movie too, just because it's like my stepdad always, I've never seen him laugh as hard. Like, we would watch this movie and Joel and I a whole bunch growing up. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just movies that we had or whatever, but it was always a movie that we would throw on a Saturday night or whatever. But when the bad guy gets the emerald, and then the crocodile like bites his hand off in Romancing the Stone. I've never seen my stepdad laugh so hard. I was just a random like thing to laugh at. So I always have that fun little memory of just, and he'll recant that to just be, it's very entertaining, but a really good movie. I really liked Romancing the Stone.
It is. It's fun. What's important about this one is that Zemeckis only directed this, and this was essentially the equivalent of somebody taking a job, because they're like, everything I'm doing, I need to find work. I need someone who will hire me. I need to do what I can do. And then it was great. And that's how he got the cachet to be able to go and do other things, because we've talked about this with other people, is for so many people, you have one bit of success and it will keep you employed kind of forever. You think about, we've joked about wanting to do a deep dive on people we don't like, because they had that one taste of success and then they managed to keep getting hired to make terrible films forever.
Yeah.
Thankfully, this is sort of the opposite. Zemeckis was like, I need a job. I have to take, like, everything. I'm working with Steven fucking Spielberg and everything is disintegrating. I just need something to hit and take work. And this was this. I will note that he had nothing to do with Jewel of the Nile. He did not direct the sequel,
right?
Which I like Jewel of the Nile. It's a fun movie. It also did very well.
The three main leads are all in it, right?
The three main leads, and they had a hit Billy Ocean song. You may remember the song, "When the Going Gets Tough, the Tough Get Going." They're all in the music video for that, because that was the era where people did that. They're like, oh, not only are we going to have a hit pop song for our movie, you're all going to be in the music video.
You know what's really interesting about this, in my research looking into it, and it's just on Wikipedia, so I don't know how deep the research is, but so they showed a rough cut of Romancing the Stone, and it was viewed poorly enough, oddly enough, that this got him kicked off of directing Cocoon, which he was signed on to do at the time. Which, how about that? Like, you know, and this is the movie that we think that kind of re-jump started him and then just puts him in the stratosphere as he starts doing the Back to the Future and Roger Rabbit, which we're going to get into, but I was surprised, just like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
which I think he wrote, because he wrote Cocoon, right?
Let's find out. I'm not sure. You are incorrect. He did not write Cocoon.
Just kidding.
No, it's all good. But still, you could tell he was in that point where he was trying to take jobs. So he'd probably taken these jobs, just being like, I need work. And then that's so funny, because Zemeckis has said in multiple interviews, the reason his career exists is because of Romancing the Stone.
Yeah. Oh,
it gave him the ability to make a career decision to do something he wanted to do, because no one was going to let him do anything otherwise.
Although, weirdly enough, if he does, I mean, I don't know the shooting schedule and everything like that. I mean, does he maneuver into Back to the Future if he's still working on Cocoon? Because I don't know how late that came out. How sliding doors is that? I mean, but
no, that's a good point. You're right. And you know what's funny? I like Cocoon. That became a Ron Howard film, right? Boy, there's a track record. How many films? Is that only 2 times that's happened? What's that quote? You know, if I had a nickel for every time that's happened, I'd have 2 nickels. But it's weird that it happened twice, right? Yeah. That's Ron Howard picking up the slack of a fired director and just finishing their movie. This and Solo, Cocoon and Solo. So now, you know, I am going to take a quick peek at Ron Howard's IMDb to see if that's happened a third time. I don't think it has. No, I'm not saying a third time, but that would be really interesting. And also, that'd be an interesting deep dive, because he hasn't directed a ton, and he has a middle period that sucks. But anyway, we'll look around Howard another time. This is the Robert Zemeckis deep dive. So, but after directing Romancing the Stone, which again does well, everybody's happy. We're like, listen, we were going to kick you out of Hollywood. We're going to ride you out of Hollywood on the rails. But guess what? We'll let you make another movie. And he has said in interviews that everyone came to him after Romancing the Stone. Every person in Hollywood was like, we'll do anything you want. And respect to Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, Robert Zemeckis was like, well, there was only one person who was willing to work with us when we weren't hot, and that was Steven Spielberg. Let's go back to Steven Spielberg. Now we're willing to work with him, because we needed to show we could do something. Let's go to the person that was trying to bring us to the dance.
We feel worthy of his talents or whatever.
Right. And now that we all have this together, and the next movie after he directed Romancing the Stone was Back to the goddamn Future. And listen, there's nothing we can talk about Back to the Future that no one else has, we're not going to bring a new discussion to Back to the Future, right? We're not going to have the insight that no one has had on Back to the fucking Future. Except to say, like, I talked earlier about how they've made me fall out of love with Ghostbusters. I've never fallen out of love with Back to the
It's
Future.
amazing, isn't it? I mean, if it's on right now, I could probably watch 45 minutes of it. Or just all of it. I mean, it's incredible. And really, it's like that for any of them. Definitely for the first one. I mean, I can always watch the first one.
And we can gloss over 2 and 3 later in the run if we wanted to just talk about all 3 as a unit right now. That's because how they're kind of intertwined. But 1985, Back to the Future. 1989, Part 2, 1990, Part 3, 2 and 3 famously shot back to back.
No,
not 85 though. Back to the Future, the first one, like just I've always ranked the 3 movies in this regard. Sentimentally, 2 is my favorite. It is a sentimental favorite. I am enamored with how creative and original it is and how they put it together. It's just creative and original. Yeah, can't exist without the first one. It's breathtakingly unique in that way. But the first one is the best movie of all of them. It is the only one that exists as a proper, true classic film. The other 2 are great. And I've come around on 3. Like so many kids, I didn't like 3 because Doc falls in love and it's a Western and I don't like this and blah, blah, blah. As someone who grew up and revisited them, I thought, oh man, this is a good fucking time. They may have tried to make that a family film, but for me, I was like, what the fuck is this? Especially after the insanity that is 2.
Right.
As an adult, though, it slows it back down and it takes it back to having an emotional center like the first one did. The second movie doesn't really have an emotional center. They try, but it doesn't really have an emotional center. The first and third do. But the first movie, I've always said, is a 99% perfect film. And why do I say it's not a 100% perfect film? Because that one special effects shot where Marty's foot is in the fire trail after the car in the mall. And I know that's such a nitpicky thing that if you couldn't watch a movie over and over and over again, but it has a 99.9% perfect film. If his foot wasn't in the fire, it'd be 100% perfect film. So, but
shoes were more fireproof in the 80s.
Yeah,
I guess.
There you go. But it's the performances, the writing, the special effects, the action, the heart. It's the package. It's the package.
It's interesting that on the heels, this is only a year after Ghostbusters comes out, right? Where you see special effects kind of being part of a comedic aspect to a thing like that union hadn't been much of a thing up until that point. And while I acknowledge the special effects of Ghostbusters, Back to the Future just feels like movie magic. I don't know how to describe it. Like I just said, there's whimsy to it also. Maybe that's part of it, but like just it's a movie that has magic within it, but like the story is, I don't know. There is an uplifting and just kind of awe-inspiring quality to watching that movie.
Agreed. It makes you feel good. Bustin' might make you feel good, they say, but Back to the Future makes you feel good.
And that goes with the score too, which is iconic. I mean, so like that, just there are little points to it. I know people have them as their ringtones or whatever. The little
Alan Silvestri. Well, if my phone
is it yours?
My text sound when I actually have my phone on is the little chimes when they put a date on the screen.
Yeah.
And also the soundtrack. You say it's so good. Is there are few moments I've had like on a long road trip better than when I'm just driving on the highway and I'm in cruise and I'm just going and that music comes on. Maybe you pass a couple extra people because you're suddenly feeling the need to drive. I don't know. It's everything about it though is you're right. And it's something that can't be replicated. Really, Crispin Glover, right? The performance of Crispin Glover is admittedly missed in the next 2.
Sure.
But what would you can't fan cast. You can't rewrite the past. That's a big part of this movie. You can't rewrite the past. And the future is what you make it. What would those 2 movies have become if they had had Crispin Glover's involvement? It's they became what they became because they didn't have Crispin Glover, and we love them because of what they are. But that first movie is such a perfect total package, and a lot of that rests on his shoulders.
Yep.
But we're not talking so much about Zemeckis in that. I do want to focus on what he brings to the table here, because it's going to be a through line throughout his career.
Sure.
His biggest thing is heart and special effects.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I have to think about this as we go through these movies. How good they talk about how George Lucas is not an actor's director. That's why the prequels and even the original Star Wars had so many issues and were often saved. Like, they talk about how the original Star Wars was saved in the edit by other people, because he is not an actor's director. I don't necessarily want to say Zemeckis is not an actor's director, because you can't have that much heart without being able to work with your actors to some degree. You wouldn't have Tom Hanks coming back the way he does if he wasn't somebody he wanted to work with. But I think of Zemeckis as an actor's director. I think of him. We talked about Jim Henson a couple of weeks ago, and his need to constantly push the creative. And I get a lot of that from Zemeckis. He really wants to push the creative. The benefit to him is that he still has enough of wanting to keep the heart in it that it doesn't, for now, lose things.
So I think he creates the environment and then benefits from excellent casting and lets them kind of do their thing, entrusting them to play within his environment. Does that make sense? And then kind of goes back to the well once he has his, and this is not just him as a director, but a lot of other directors do this, goes back to the well of, these people can play in my environment, so I'm going to bring them back again. I think he kind of does that.
That makes sense. There's a reason why he works with the amount of regulars and recurrings that he does, because he has such admittedly, his recurrings, Tom Hanks, Christopher Lloyd, like, I think we're going to be okay. But not everyone else could even, you could have that type of pedigree and still fuck it up. He's trusting them and able to guide them just enough to be able to do that. That's fair. So if we want to talk on 2 and 3 later, we can hit a lot of the point. Like I said, there's not a lot to say that hasn't been said by a million people forever. My favorite stories about some of the Back to the Future behind the scenes stuff, the fact that, let's hit the biggest story. That's one of my favorites that you probably know. Crispin Glover's scenes in 2 changed to the Screen Actors Guild forever. Are you aware of that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. So for anyone that's not, I'll hit it real quick. They did not seek permission to put the scenes that Crispin Glover is in 2 that he had already shot for 1 in 2. Like, they didn't ask him, like, hey man, those scenes he used in 1, we're going to use them again. And then on top of that, they got someone who was a body double to fake him. All those scenes you see of George in the background or in old age makeup and all that are not Crispin Glover. And it, frankly, it shows. But the reason he's used sparingly is they didn't say it wasn't Crispin Glover. And he sued the pants off of him. So, and that became Hollywood law. You need to fucking get permission for this. Yep. So there you go. So between his feature films, he did direct 1 TV movie, which, do you remember Amazing Stories, the Steven Spielberg produced TV series that was all like movie of the week type stuff? Sure. It was like a family friendly Tales from the Crypt, but he directed Go to the Head of the Class, which had Christopher Lloyd as, I believe, the teacher is an alien, if I'm correct, right? Is that the
right? Yep. I vaguely remember it, but yeah.
I remember it's one of, I will give it credit in that not a lot of people remember Amazing Stories, and people remember that one. So respect to everybody that went on in that one. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But his next feature film, you think about the 1-2 punch here. He went from Back to the Future in 85. He just went hard, and he went Who Framed Roger Rabbit in 88. And you talk about another movie that if you've never seen the behind the scenes documentaries on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and people don't appreciate, like, I need to hammer home, if someone watches this movie now without the context of the fact that they didn't have CGI, that there were no computers involved in this movie, it is a complete movie that takes place in a real world hybrid with animation. Who Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a murder mystery in Toontown. It's live people interacting with cartoon characters. And you hit all the beats, the famous notes of you managed to get Disney and the Warner Brothers cartoon characters in there. Amazing. Could you imagine if they'd had the Hanna-Barbera people in too, if they gotten all three? Like your disc. But whatever, it's all good. It was, to be fair, those characters didn't exist in the era that they were making it. So not when I think about it.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's true.
The movie takes place in the 40s, the golden age animation. All of the Hanna-Barbera people came around in the 60s. I get why that didn't happen. But you have the Looney Tunes, you have the Disney characters, you have the famous stories about how Bugs and Mickey had to be on screen for the exact same amount of time.
Yeah,
it was like presidential ads today, equal time for everybody, or else we're going to see. But the hell these actors went through to get this movie. I think about I keep coming back to Lucas, and I don't know why I keep harping on this, but maybe it's because I feel like Zemeckis is doing the things Lucas did, but he did them right? Like. Maybe it was the era, but Lucas, you see those scenes of him making the Phantom Menace, and it's all these miserable actors on blue screens, confused as to what they're doing, and it shows in the film how miserable and confused they were, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
the dialogue they had to deliver also contributed to that. But
yes, right. But there's no context of what's happening, and it's terrible. Then you go back to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and I think Bob Hoskins is just as physically miserable, but he's so invested and buying into what's going on that it doesn't show in the performance. Does that make sense? Physically, he's in hell because of everything having to go on, faking these cartoon characters around him, the wires, the puppets, the actors, the reference things, the acting against a ball and whatever, just like you went on Star Wars. The difference is he has people around him, physical sets, things that can try to inform what he's doing, and it really shows in his performance how and to be fair, his performance as a gruff, miserable person, so it probably informs that. But it's really fascinating film.
And I think that's Zemeckis's like trump card or whatever you want to call it. Like that's his apex thing that he can offer, is that he is able to, he always wants to integrate the special effects. He always wants to push the envelope visually to see what he can integrate into his movies. But he's also cognizant of the complications with that. Whereas it seemed like George Lucas kind of thinks of it in terms of it's all one thing and just has his vision that he thinks needs to come to life. And he kind of doesn't care specifically how enduring it has to be. I think Zemeckis is way more cognizant of that and understands what can help the process along, because the human part of it is part of what's involved with the special effects.
And you do have to keep in mind that we are referencing Phantom Menace being shot in 1998 and 99 versus Who Framed Roger Rabbit being shot in 1988. Yeah. The technology is wildly different. Who knows what Zemeckis would have tried to do if that technology existed in 1988.
That's fair. We may get into that in a little bit. So,
right. But that said, nailed
for this specific time period, I think that's what it was. And
Agreed.
I don't have a bad thing to say about Roger Rabbit. It was obviously the first time I watched it, I was 8, 9, 10. And just, I still adore this movie. It's
so
no notes. I love this movie.
People talk about the blending of like, what is a family film to me? Like a perfect family film. It's a film that can be enjoyed by the adults and the children in their own ways. They can enjoy it together, and then there will be things they can enjoy separately. This movie has that in every category, in every way.
Yeah.
There's a reason. There's an entire online, people want to fuck Jessica Rabbit. That's all I'm saying. Like, if you go to the wrong part of the internet, it's out there. She's
not bad. She's just drawn that way. So it's
yeah, there it is. And also that's Kathleen Turner again, right? Bringing it back to the voice anyway, obviously.
From Romancing the Stone. Yeah. So they work together. I think they said that was because of that relationship that he asked her to be on Roger Rabbit.
That's fantastic. And then we can skirt ahead a little bit, unless you want to talk more about 2 and 3, because he went from what a run. There's the fact that you can see he directed like one TV movie short film segment in 1992. But from 88 to 90, he made Who Framed Roger Rabbit and then the back-to-back Back to the Future Part 2 and 3. And you say back-to-back, and really that's like back-to-back to back-to-back. Like he just went for it. And what, like the fact that he didn't burn out and die making these films in this time, you know, it's astounding. What do you think on any final thoughts on 2 and 3 before we move on? Again, it's one of those things is you can talk I can talk Back to the Future 1, 2, 3 all day long.
Sure.
But I don't think I'm going to add anything new to the discourse, you know?
I appreciated that after, you know, viewing or going back to in the second one, in the sequel, they harp back on the first. So it becomes that continuation. And then 3 felt like you use knowledge from 1 and 2 to invoke what was going on in the story, but they didn't rely on. I think it was still integral in part 2 to use part 1 in the ending, because I think the ending sequence of 2 is just as fun as 1. Like even though it's essentially a lot of the same stuff, it just shot different ways and different, you know, like it's still really fun. But I liked that 3 didn't rely on that. You know, they referenced stuff that's happening, but at the same time didn't go back to that, didn't have to try to revisit 1955 to make that work. So as I like that it gave it a more finality, in my opinion.
And respect to Zemeckis and Gale, and a quote from Robert Zemeckis that I will love and treasure forever. We mentioned how Back to the Future hasn't fallen off the way that Ghostbusters fell off from franchise-itis and this and that. You're aware as to why, I hope. Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale have in their contracts, who would have ever thought to do this in the fucking 80s? But they have a clause that those movies can never be remade while they're alive. Those movies cannot be touched, franchised, handled, done. Nothing can be done with them unless they agree while they're alive. So I hope, Mr. Zemeckis, Mr. Gale, you live long, healthy lives, because to me, what this also shows, a movie that is still beloved, talked about, prevalent society, that hasn't had a movie in its entry since 1990, and people still talk about it, find it, love it, shows what can be done if you don't fuck with it and ruin it, you know? Yep. It really shows that you don't have to be constantly pumping content into something for it to stay in the cultural zeitgeist.
Well, and something I think when technologically or from a special effects standpoint, when you are as advanced as you can be in the time that you are, it lends itself to a better movie. Now we have such technological advancements, and we've seen this with Ghostbusters, that it sort of diminishes the wonder, the fun of the movie, because it becomes more about let's look at all these cool things that we can showcase. And as you've talked about this at length about I guess you could probably call the last 2 Ghostbusters movies, but specifically the one before it. I'm forgetting the Afterlife. It
became fan wink. It became, none of these things should be iconic in their universe, and they act like they're iconic. They linger on shots of proton packs. Like, yeah, that's cool. I like that too. Why are you looking at it like that? Because that's clearly done for me.
Yeah.
And that's what a Back to the Future remake would be. A Back to the Future remake would be like, they would incorporate the DeLorean, but you wouldn't see it for an hour into the movie. And then it would like be pulled off a dusty sheet, and you'd hear like a real faint whisper of the original score in the background. It'd be like, and you would cut to a fan reaction trailer of everyone going, like, oh Christ. Sorry, I'm angry. What happened to me?
Intercut the UFC announcers doing the hold back. Like, I feel like I've put on everything now.
Oh God! I'm sorry. I'm now imagining what a terrible, not the movie, what the remake trailer would be, and everyone reacting to it. And I just, actually, have you seen Ready Player One? It'd be that vibe. The movie Ready Player One.
I haven't, so maybe
don't. And I say that as a lot of people don't like the book. I actually quite like the book. And they took everything that was kind of worthwhile in the book and then just chucked it out and made reference the movie. That's what I called Ready Player One. Reference the movie. Do you want to make a reference? It's in the movie. Reference the movie. Anyway, So, oh, and by the way, that's late era Spielberg. So we'll see what happens there someday.
You might argue that Wreck-It Ralph was like that as well. So listen,
I like Wreck-It Ralph, though. It's a different vibe.
yeah,
Wreck-It Ralph.
it's meant to be referential because it's about video games, I guess. So, but
and it has more heart than Ready
True.
Player One. Ready
there's
Player
a
One
story
has no
that
heart.
yeah that blends through it. Yeah.
Anyway, now that we're done, God, sorry, can you imagine that trailer? It would be a bunch of like slow shots, and they'd be pushing the camera in really slowly. And here's how I imagine it would be. It's like there'd be a tiny little sheet, and all you'd see is you would get like a sliver sheen that would catch the camera, and it would like lift and then cut. Like, oh God, sorry. Anyway, think of how terrible that movie would be.
See, no, and it's worse too, because what they would do is they would upgrade it for like a Tesla or something. Like
I think I disagree. I think it would be like Ghostbusters, where they would keep the iconography, like the iconic elements, but they'd put it in there and draw it out for like they're like fucking edging you with nostalgia. So that's how I think they edge you with nostalgia and be like, you want to see more? You want to see a flux capacitor? Oh, not yet, baby. Not yet. You're not going to see it yet. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You want a hoverboard? Oh, no, not till the credits. You're not going to get a hoverboard to the credits. And even though they mentioned slower, DeLorean. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Jinx. So that director segment, by the way, in 1992, isn't actually... That's simply one of his Tales from the Crypt episodes he directed. He directed 3 throughout the 80s and 90s, so we'll ignore that. But 1992, a movie that I think I didn't like as a kid, for the same reason I didn't like Back to the Future 3 as a kid, because I was stupid and a kid. And then I grew up and thought, this is fucking fantastic. And my mom loved this movie, and I never got it because I was 9.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, this movie is fucking awesome. Death Becomes Her, Meryl Streep, Bruce Willis, Goldie Hawn. Just when you talk about a movie that has aged well, in both as a joke, ironically, because of the plot of the movie, and also because of how society has become.
Sure.
It's for anyone that's seen Death Becomes Her, it's about these women who are immortal, just doing everything they can to stay beautiful, young, vibrant. And it really plays on a lot of Hollywood tropes of getting older, because it's with also 3 people who in the early 90s were at the top of their game, but also just starting to age. Like in the sense that it was 1992, and these are famous stars from the 80s and, in Meryl Streep's case, late 70s.
Yeah.
Not say that they were still top of their game. They were making hits. It's these people in eras when they were making hits. These aren't faded stars, but it really plays with the fact that you've been watching these people for 10 years. You know they've been aging. You've seen them age. Let's play with that a little bit and really see how this is going to handle. And also, from a Zemeckis standpoint, it's that first taste of CGI. And it blew everyone's mind in 1992. That shot, was it Goldie Hawn or Meryl Streep, where like they've had the hole blown through them?
Yep.
And it doesn't look like it's animated. It looks so real.
Yeah.
Like, it blew people's minds in 1992, what they were seeing. And that's another thing of him in his prime, in that golden era, just pre-Forrest Gump, of how can I meld CG and this technology with the story I want to tell?
Yeah, I just got, like you said, very almost ahead of its time. Not necessarily with the special effects. I mean, that too, but in terms of the storyline, because it aged well is a great way to put it. It's this is more entertaining to watch now, I think, than it was at the time, and it was still fairly entertaining at the time. But I had a similar experience where I watched it and was almost kind of like grossed out by it, when I was a kid, and then watching it, I think I a couple of years ago, it was on cable or something, or one of the movie streamings, and I watched it on a whim, and it just it tickled me more than I thought. I was like, oh, this is pretty amusing.
And I don't know why. It's weird because it was a big hit, but I'm trying to think how to say this. Have you ever thought, because you didn't like something, that something didn't do well, then you realized it actually did incredibly well? Like as
Yeah.
a kid, it was that movie. It was like that weird movie. Nobody fucking knows that movie, and everyone knew that movie, and it was a
Yeah.
massive hit, and people remember it very fondly. I was
Well, and that
just
was the time frame. You put three massive stars on a movie, it's pretty much everyone's going to go see it that weekend. Like it's
yes,
not guaranteed, but it's pretty much you put
right.
these
This
three on a
was
movie in 1992, and I think you're all right to make your money back and then some.
You're right. To the point, this is the same era of your Bonfire of the Vanities, like where you could fuck it up. You could
Yep.
very much fuck it up, but they didn't. And it
Yep.
was delightful. This is what I had read. The original ending was entirely redone after test audiences reacted very poorly to it. The original ending featured Bruce Willis's character Ernest after he has fled the party, meeting a bartender played by Tracy Ullman, who helps him fake his death to avoid Madeline and Helen, Meryl Streep, Goldie Hawn. The two women encounter him and the bartender 27 years later, living happily as a retired couple, while Madeline and Helen have given no sign that they have stopped what they've been their feud over the eternal existence. Zemeckis thought the ending was too happy and opted for the darker ending that was eventually featured in the final cut.
Nice.
So Tracy Ullman, that was her only part, her entire part cut out of the movie. Also, oh my God, this is amazing. I didn't realize this. I didn't remember Jonathan Silverman being in this movie, but that's because Jonathan Silverman's parts were also cut. He is one of 5 actors, including Ullman, whose entire roles were eliminated from the film. And Jonathan Silverman has sort of become almost like a patron saint of this podcast with the amount that we talk about and reference him. So respect to Jonathan Silverman. So, and by respect, I mean the amount of disrespect we often show Jonathan Silverman.
Maybe not saint. What are the archangel? Maybe.
Yeah. Also, before we move on, we've talked about it. Gut reaction, unless you have it in front of you. Gut reaction, Siskel and Ebert. Thumbs up or thumbs down or split?
I would say they were split on this.
They both gave it a thumbs down. If you what a swing and a miss. They said that while the film had great they said that while the film had great special effects, it lacked any substance or character depth. What movie did you guys watch? Sometimes they were so on and sometimes they were so off. It's ridiculous.
That could have been maybe, see, they're just, you expect Meryl Streep to have a lot more depth in something where this is by design a lot sillier of a concept, but maybe that's it.
To dial into what I'm saying too is I do wonder how much am I looking at this through the lens of what our society is now, where I say it works to them, maybe it didn't work then,
Could be.
But moving on, then we have already talked at length about this film in other episodes. You can, to the point where I wrote a sequel pitch for it that you can find in our archives. We've talked about this movie extensively in our Tom Hanks versus Tom Cruise 1990s episode. Forrest Gump, 1994. Listen, we have talked this movie to death on this show. Yep. Anything you want to say about it before we move on?
Just notable that this gets him his Best Director Oscar. So it's
yes.
I would say for the Zemeckis part of it, I think that's the contribution other than everything else we pretty much said.
And you're right. We talked and we did focus a lot more on Tom Hanks probably. You do have to look though. I feel like this really is, you see this movie as the culmination of everything he's been building on since Back to the Future. Yep. Not necessarily Romancing the Stone, but Back to the Future, because it's more heart and more special effects. It's like he went and he was like, I want so much heart. All right, but I also want all the special effects. Well, but you already have all this heart. I want it all. Both. I want it all. Give it to me all.
Keep shoving it in.
Also, give me an iconic actor who just won an Oscar. Well, we can't really. No, do it. I want to give him another one. But yeah, it's fascinating. It's great. Then we move on to a movie I forgot he directed. I didn't remember this being a Robert Zemeckis movie, Contact in 1997. And I need to look up stuff on Contact because I feel like my memories of how this movie was received and how it came out of time are going to be like wrong from how society took it. What do you remember on Contact, in the movie Contact?
I think I remember seeing it in the theater, and even as a teenager being kind of underwhelmed by it, because there was so much because I think this got nominations and stuff like that. I felt like this was really well received at the time, and in my opinion has kind of waned in its perspective throughout the last couple decades. I could be wrong there.
I remember we wound up watching this movie, what is it? I think 2 years after it came out, as I never saw it in theaters. I completely missed it entirely. And then I don't remember why. I think we were reading the book because it's based off the Carl Sagan novel.
Mhm.
We watched it in one of my English classes in high school, like 2 years after it came out. And that's when I watched it. And I remember not liking it when I watched it. And I don't think I've necessarily watched it since because of that.
Yeah.
But looking up the old Wikipedia here, it jogged my memory on something that I'd completely forgotten about, was a genuine controversy that they digitally altered Bill Clinton to look like he was commenting on the aspects in the movie while he was a sitting president. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that.
So they took scenes from an actual press conference he had done, from actual things he had talked about, but they edited it and chopped it up to make it seem like he was talking about they didn't like digitally AI deep fake him, but they cut it together to make it seem like these real things he was doing was talking about the events in the film. And there were some people who were like, I'm sorry, what the fuck? And think about those people handling AI now, right?
Yeah. And there wasn't any pushback? Like,
3 days after the film opened in the United States, Warner Brothers received a letter from the White House counsel protesting against the use of Clinton's digitally composited appearance. The letter made no demands, but called the duration of the appearance and the manner of his appearance inappropriate. No legal action was planned. The White House counsel simply wanted to send a message to Hollywood to please avoid unauthorized uses of the president's image. Zemeckis was reminded that the official White House policy prohibits the use of the president in any way that implies a direct connection between the president and a commercial product or service.
Interesting.
So a Warner Brothers spokesperson responded back, "We feel we were completely frank and upfront with the White House on this issue. We sent you scripts, you were notified when the film was completed, and you were sent a print ahead of the film's opening.
Okay.
And we have confirmation the print was received by your office on July 2nd. The film opened July 11th. Warner Brothers did concede that they never pursued or received formal release from the White House for his image, while the counsel commented that the parody and satire use under First Amendment did not protect this film, believing that there's a difference between the president's image, which is his alone to control, is used in a way that would lead the viewer to believe he has said something he didn't. Like, you're not saying this was a joke, a gag, a parody. You were saying the president said this.
Yeah.
So it was a pissing contest. But I remember that in the news. I actually remember that very clearly. And it might have been discussed in our class when we were talking about the film.
Gotcha.
So I realize that doesn't have anything to do with Zemeckis in there, other than the fact that he signed off on it and did it on this. But yeah.
Yeah.
This is actually, I think, perhaps maybe why I don't think of this as a Zemeckis film. He did not develop this film. Mad Max Fury Road, Babe Pig in the Cities, George Miller developed this film with Warner Brothers. And then he fell out with them. He sued the studio for breach of contract, and Zemeckis just took it over. So there you go. I don't have a lot to say about Zemeckis on this, maybe because he is sort of your workhorse choice, right? Hey, who's a well-regarded director who could dabble in art and special effects that we need to take over this film that we've put all this work into? Oh, I know. Let's back up a truck of money to Robert Zemeckis.
He'll come in and land the plane. Yep.
That's the vibe. Exactly. That's how it feels. Especially because then Francis Ford Coppola also sued Warner Brothers, as he had been attached to help develop this movie and done work on it and got no credit for it.
Huh.
So really, it does feel like a landing the plane film for Zemeckis to the point why I'm not thinking about it. But you know what it also was? Made money, had decent enough critical acclaim, and it didn't sully his name in any way. You know what I mean? This was still looked at as, yeah, okay, thanks for landing the plane. You did great. We still love you.
Looking at the visual effects, it's just like all the different VFX companies that work together on this is pretty interesting. I don't know if you saw that, but like it's like ILM, Peter Jackson's company, Pixar, they were all worked together on the CGI rendering for it.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm really curious. When did this fall? What did this fall into for Jodie Foster? Because I remember this being a bigger deal for Jodie Foster at the time than Robert Zemeckis, I feel like.
When was Maverick?
Maverick was 94, and this was
Okay.
97. This is what I was trying to remember. So she did Silence of the Lambs in 91. Then she did a couple of movies. She did Maverick, which was a big hit. Then she did Nell, which I just remember everyone making fun of. Then she didn't act for 3. This is why I remember this. This was her returning to making movies after Nell, because it had been
Gotcha.
3 years. The last thing she had done was Nell, and everyone was like, ooh, maybe we don't. So this was why. And also, this was in the height of the original. You can't call it the McConaissance, or maybe the original
Yeah.
McConaissance. This was the first era of Matthew McConaughey, when it was a big deal to have him, as he was being a big star. So anyway, Contact, there you go.
Silvestri also did the score for that.
I would imagine, because Alan Silvestri, which I would love to just talk about Alan Silvestri for a moment. I don't remember if we've talked about him in other films. He is the go-to composer for Robert Zemeckis. He has done so many of his things, but he has done a lot outside of that. You think that he's done the best Captain America and Avengers movies. That's why the Avengers theme that you think of, that I kind of like, I can't do it justice. That's Alan Silvestri. To think that have that, yeah. Alan Silvestri did the Avengers theme, and he did the Back to the Future theme. Anyway, back to Mr. Zemeckis. And we talked a little bit about this, and I've had the same trivia fact for our Hanks vs. Hanks battle in 90, because for the 90s, because you famously made me cover the year 2000 in our 90s battle. Famously or infamously made me cover the year 2000 in our 90s battle. But in that regard, he had 2 movies come out in the year 2000. He didn't do anything after Contact. And he didn't, again, he was brought in as like a pickup director on Contact. So you really look at, he did Forrest Gump in 94, and then didn't do one of his own projects again until the year 2000. And what a year 2000, though. He had 2 massive hits. He had the more famous Castaway, which everyone remembers, talks about, is still highly regarded. I know you said you didn't love it, but it was a big hit, and it's still well loved.
Sure.
Castaway.
No, I recognize the performances. It's just lukewarm to me.
But then he also did What Lies Beneath with Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford, and I consider that sort of the last gasp of classic Harrison Ford, I've often said, because he started making a lot of bombs after this. So What Lies Beneath, big deal in 2000. A nice, just fun horror thriller movie with big stars. And also, as I'll say the same trivia fact I said in the other episode, made with the crew from Castaway, because they needed to keep all these people on the books and employed and not taking other work, while Tom Hanks went and lost all the weight he needed to do for the island scenes. They shot all the fat Hank scenes. I say fat, normal weight Hank scenes for Castaway. Went and shot What Lies Beneath, and then went and finished Castaway. And, and what's interesting to me about What Lies Beneath is What Lies Beneath focuses more on some of the stuff that we had talked about for the special effects for Zemeckis, while Castaway, really, I know there's all the water and all this, but to me, that's more of the heart. To me, you split off the 2 Zemeckises in these movies. What Lies Beneath is a horror thriller and gets the special effects aspects of Zemeckis. Castaway, you could say it has special effects, but I really don't feel like it does. If that did, you would have digitally made Hanks thin. You have the heart in Castaway. Castaway is his performance-based heart film in this era. So you split those 2 Zemeckises off. And that's an interesting thing to me. And then, what do you have anything else you want to say on those 2 films? Because we have talked about them before.
No, I don't think so. I think, like you said, there are dynamics at times that Zemeckis is willing to go beyond his adventure drama idea, or even just some comedic aspects. I mean, What Lies Beneath being more that thriller or horror or suspense, which he, explored with Death Becomes Her, even though that's more like bonkers, like dark comedy, I guess. But the fact that he's willing to go in kind of different places with what he's doing, he's not a pigeonholed kind of director.
It really says to me a lot too, the fact that he hasn't done his own again, I know Contact's there, but I forgot he had done Contact. He was a pickup director. He didn't develop that film. To me, if you're going to really look at how did he follow up Forrest Gump, he followed up Forrest Gump with the 1-2 punch of What Lies Beneath and Castaway.
Yep.
Really, it's interesting because those two movies could be considered swings, right? Because they are both so different from everything he had done previously, while still keeping, like I said, aspects of it in this one and aspects of it in that one. It's
Sure.
an interesting vibe. But then I sent you a text, and I want to read this text off because I need to preface what we're about to talk about. I said, I mentally break down Robert Zemeckis' career to these eras. Early flops, we've talked about it. Breakthrough and golden era. Obviously, Romancing the Stone is the breakthrough, and the golden era really does last. It's a great 15-year run. There's gaps. Obviously, he took 6 years off just now, essentially.
Sure.
But Back to the Future in 85, through What Lies Beneath and Castaway, both in the year 2000. Right? Like, what a run. Like, banger after banger after banger. Then we hit an era that I call living in the uncanny valley, which that starts, Castaway comes out in 2000.
Yep.
In 2004 is his next film, The Polar Express, which, to be fair, tries to keep a lot of what he is famous for, right? It's got heart. It's a family film. It's pushing the boundaries of special effects. It's got Tom Hanks. But wow. And I think for some people, The Polar Express is a Christmas classic, right? On Christmas Eve, a young boy embarks on a magical adventure to the North Pole on the Polar Express, learning about friendship, bravery, spirit of Christmas. And it's famously or infamously the first movie that is all 100% CGI, motion captured. And we're talking we're post Gollum, but we've really figured this technology out. Does that make sense? You know?
Yep.
Or let me rephrase, we're post Gollum, we're not, let's do an entire movie this way. We did Gollum, and Gollum went pretty well. But Gollum's about 25 minutes in a 3-hour epic, right?
Yep.
And we kept Gollum in the shadows a lot. We kept Gollum in the caves and the shadows a whole lot. And also we had Andy Serkis, who dedicated himself to it. The Uncanny Valley, there's a reason. Did you ever see the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie on Disney Plus?
I did, yeah.
There is an entire joke about this era of Robert Zemeckis films, just making fun of when they go to discarded characters and unloved characters. There's a whole neighborhood they do like a modern age Roger Rabbit, right? With Toontown. And there's a whole neighborhood that's the Uncanny Valley Robert Zemeckis film characters. And they talk about their dead stares and glassy eyes. And it's like, don't look at them. Don't look at them in their glassy eyes and dead stares. And he's trying, right? He's making a swing and he's doing what he can, but boy, it's hard to look at sometimes.
This is tricky too, because this was such a beloved children's book by Chris Van Allsburg that people are not always kind if you don't absolutely hit it out of the park when you're trying something like this. Like, I don't know if maybe, Jumanji, I guess technically was kind of the same thing, but that wasn't as beloved a book as The Polar Express was, in my opinion.
I didn't know Jumanji was a book. I knew The Polar Express was a book. That's the difference.
Same author, so it's
is it really? I didn't know that. I thought you were just making a reference to
same
Jumanji
illustrator. That's why I brought it up. Yeah, same. He was known for
that's
his,
a really good point, Randy. Great job. I had no idea. Good work. So proud of you. It's also Zarathustra. Is it? You want to talk about Zarathustra?
Zarathustra?
That's the space Jumanji that Jon Favreau directed. Do you remember that one?
I don't want to talk about that.
Do you even remember that movie?
I don't remember that movie.
Zathura.
Oh.
2005, a space adventure, or as I call it, Space Jumanji.
Oh. I'll have to not check that out and read the Wikipedia recap.
Let's talk about The Polar Express.
Yes. Or, I think we've said what, unless you had more.
No, you know what I respect about this film is that this is the movie where they brought along all their friends. It has, your Wendy Jo Sperber, who, by the way, we talked about, played Marty's sister, was also in Bosom Buddies. was also in a lot of these Zemeckis movies, shows up in this as a voice. You know who else is in this one? Eddie Deason, who I mentioned was the nerd and shows up in a lot of Zemeckis movies.
Okay.
But more important to that, with Tom Hanks in this movie, with Zemeckis directing, and them bringing all their friends along, you know who else gets a little love in this movie? Peter Scolari. Do you know Peter Scolari? He's the other bosom buddy.
Bosom buddy, yeah.
Yeah. He gets a little work in this because Tom Hanks remembers his friends. Actually, by all accounts, with Tom Hanks being apparently...
Is he the annoying kid? Or
yeah, he's a lonely boy. He's Billy, the lonely boy. Which I find all kids annoying kids, so it's not really a good... I don't like kids.
I know, but again, isn't everybody else voiced by Tom Hanks?
I guess.
Wasn't that a thing? Like, didn't Tom Hanks do multiple voices in that?
I thought he was just the conductor. Because there's a lot of voice actors in this.
Maybe I'm making that up.
It is Tom Hanks in multiple roles. You're right.
Okay, multiple roles. Gotcha.
Tom Hanks is the boy's father, the conductor, Santa, and Ebenezer Scrooge, and the hobo. Okay. Peter Scolari is Billy the lonely boy. And, Wendy Just Berber's not in this. I thought she was. I thought I saw her name there. It must have been something else. Anyway, the problem is Polar Express does pretty well, right? And I say the problem is that it does well, and he's all in on this clearly, and he wants to continue this technology. And he then goes and makes Beowulf, the classic, how do you describe that? Is it an epic poem, Beowulf? Is that how it's described? Greek, and it's not a Greek tragic, it's Old English. But it's an epic poem, the heroic legend. Yep. And I remember seeing this one in the theater. And I may have been brought in because wasn't half the marketing the fact that you were going to see like sexy, naked, animated Angelina Jolie?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, like, I didn't care about the Polar Express as much, but I was like, man, I'll see weirdly smooth-skinned, animated, naked Angelina Jolie as like a demon or some shit. I'm in. And then I saw it and it's like, that was really boring. I remember Beowulf being very boring because that's the thing when you adopt and, when you faithfully adopt something that's an Old English epic poem, honest to God, it's probably going to be fucking boring. And it was. So there you go. Thoughts on Beowulf?
No amount of motion capture. I think it would be similar to my take on Here, where Beowulf was just like, after about 15 minutes of being like, this is amazing that I'm watching this, I'm like, this is kind of fucking boring.
So I really want to get into everything we've talked about so far up through Polar Express has been a smash bang fucking hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to look up the box office for this Beowulf. Like, did it do could it be one of those things where I don't like it, so no one liked it?
Yep.
Let's find out together. Because so far, obviously, since since Romancing the Stone, the man hasn't made a bomb, right? The man is untouchable, Robert Zemeckis. And that includes content.
As a director, right.
Right. Sorry.
Yep.
We're only talking about his directing.
Yeah.
Because since Romancing the Stone, if he's directed it, it has made fucking bank. He is Robert fucking Zemeckis,
Yep.
But we're going to look up Beowulf on that By the Numbers site and a little Wikipedia because sometimes By the Numbers is a suspect. Which I like how I'm saying Wikipedia isn't fucking suspect. It opened number 1. Didn't do great. It did great in the aspect that it made almost $200 million, which for a regular movie would be huge, but it cost $150 million to make and market. So you got a profit, but it's one of those ones. They didn't bomb, and it really didn't bomb because it made $200 million. Like, that's a good, especially in 2000 whatever, that's still a good movie, like a hit. People went to see it. The problem is you spent a lot of fucking money to make this thing that wasn't super well received. Which leads us into his next one, A Christmas Carol in 2009, which this is the one I tapped out on. They clearly want to recapture the Polar Express magic.
Yep.
Jim Carrey wants to recapture making the money from The Grinch because that was a big hit.
Yep.
Like, all these things are coming together where they're like, Jim Carrey's going to play multiple characters. He's going to be Ghost. He's going to be Scrooge. We're going to do the thing. It's going to be fucking amazing. Because doesn't he also do the ghosts? He does just like how Tom Hanks did multiple parts.
Yeah, I think the 3 ghosts and something else.
And Scrooge. And Scrooge. He's Scrooge.
Right, yeah.
But so it's like, we're going to make this happen. Okay, this one did okay. It did better than Beowulf, at least. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. The budget on Wikipedia is listed as 175 to 200 million. There's probably marketing costs, things like that, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. But it made $325 million. So, like, when you gross $125 million in 2009, pre-Marvel blow up explosion, you were allowed to only gross $105 million and be considered a hit. Now you're considered a bomb. If you only grossed $100 million, you're a failure in 2024. Right. In 2009, if you gross $125 million, you're doing okay. You're doing all right. But I was not enamored. I've never seen this movie. I didn't care to see this movie. I was so checked out on all this. And he says, Robert Zemeckis said, after making Polar Express, he fell in love with digital theater. And and that's why he did what he did and what career he did. And I was like, I wish you hadn't.
I don't know. To me, it's like there's three versions of this that are great. It's the Disney one, it's the Muppet one, it's Scrooged.
Yes.
That's my take.
Yes, agreed. To me, if we're going to rank those three, Muppets, Scrooged, the half-hour Disney special with Mickey. That's that one.
Was that only a half hour? Okay.
Yeah. Maybe an hour. But you're right. Those are the top three, and I rank them Muppet, Scrooge, Disney. But those are the definitive three. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Shakespearean actors who want to do a genuine take. I'm sorry. I know it's a Dickensian book, but Shakespearean actors often take on the role of Scrooge, is what I'm saying. That's in 2009. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, geez, can we stop with this? And I remember being so excited when Flight came out in 2012 with Denzel Washington. I remember actively being excited for this drama movie featuring live action actors just doing drama because it was Robert Zemeckis not doing a cartoon.
Yeah.
I was hyped, which I don't remember anyone else being that excited about it. Now, by the way, that movie did great. It got Denzel, I think Denzel got an Oscar nom out of it, or did he win for Flight?
I think he got nominated, but yeah. Nominated, yeah. Actually, nominated. I had it up, yeah.
Best original screenplay nomination. Yeah.
Did he win a Golden?
And also, maybe I don't remember, but there was a lot of Oscar talk around him, obviously, at that point.
Sure.
Flight, very well received. It's a good movie.
I
was just like, man, we are back. We are back. Thank God. And it was just nice. It's sad that because I was at the point in 2012 where I'm grown up enough now to understand media, and iMDb existed, and I recognized the era we'd been living in. So I was at a point in my life as a fan of film where I was like, yes, let's get Robert Zemeckis back on a real set. Let's do it. And guess what? It paid off.
Yeah.
It paid off in spades. Let's do it. We're back, baby. What do you remember about Flight?
A dramatic semi-thriller, thriller maybe not, suspense maybe, just based on the nature of the context of what happens with him trying to land the plane and all that other stuff. I mean, just good sequences and really good performances, a flawed quote-unquote hero in the story. And just, I mean, Denzel giving a good performance is usually pretty much a given. So, but like, it's great to see him perform in a context like that. It's just a good movie. It's enjoyable. Like, you can put it on, you can watch it. It's like, all right, that was an enjoyable use of my 2 hours. I'm glad I went and saw that. I saw good people giving good performances in a well-structured movie.
By the way, I need to figure out what year Roger Ebert died, because he's still giving reviews up to this movie in 2012, and I thought he was long gone by this point. I realized he wasn't doing the show because he'd had his jaw removed from the cancer, but he was still doing his newspaper column. But 2012, he wrote, this was his sixth best film of 2012. And he said, even though the film was not nominated for Best Picture, he felt it should have been. So
2013. That's when he died.
2013. Okay, so there you go. But man, I'm just like, good God, Roger, fucking still hanging on. I didn't think we were still going to be quoting Roger Ebert in 2012.
No, that's true.
So good on him. I wrote that era as back to live action success. And because I believe his next movie, The Walk, which I wanted to revisit. When I said I had rented 2 films yesterday, I rented Used Cars and The Walk because I wanted to rewatch them both, and I only got around to rewatching Used Cars.
Yep.
Did you watch The Walk 2015?
No, I would need your help with that one. That's one I didn't see.
So I liked The Walk. I thought it was just a good performance out of Joseph Gordon-Levitt as the guy I remember there being a lot of discussion about the movie even existing because it's 2015 and how do I say this? The movie can't exist without you filming. It's about the guy who wirewalked between the two towers, the Twin Towers, right? And I think there was a lot of people in 2015 who were like, we're going to do a movie about the Twin Towers just existing? And I was like, well, they did for a really long time, but you know how people can be, right?
Sure.
Like, are you going to pretend they didn't exist for many years and other things happened there? To me, I say, not to get into a discourse on another thing, isn't that an insult to act like if you never make a movie about them again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They had one defining moment, and that was their destruction. That would be terrible.
Sure.
I don't like that. It underperformed at the box office. It only grossed about $20 million. It had a $61.2 million, I think domestic only, but domestic box office on a budget of $45 million. So this is his first real bomb since his, early days. Like, because we talked about the other one, like Beowulf maybe didn't do great, but it was still making money. This is a proper underperformer. The thing is, I liked this movie. It got positive reviews from other critics. I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt did a fantastic performance. And listen, Robert Zemeckis had to make us think that the Twin Towers were real again.
Right.
And you had to have people interacting with them. And you had to create a New York of the 1970s and make it believable. And I really think he nailed it. I really think he integrated the setting. He integrated the effects, coupled again with the heart he can get out of people's performances. I think it's just a good movie. Like, it's heart, it's special effects, it's a period piece. Do you want a little bit of that Forrest Gump love? Go watch The Walk. I like it. But it's I don't mean that it's as good as Forrest Gump, but you get what I mean. It's that slice of walking that line. Period piece, heart, special effects. Do you want that little taste of Zemeckis dipping in that world? This is where you can get it again.
Cool.
It's a shame that it underperformed, but I would consider it a good movie, and I don't slag him for this film. So I that's the best write-up I can give of that one, which is really a pretty good write-up, right?
Yeah, I'm very well done.
Here's the problem. His next 1, 2, 3, he has made 4 films since The Walk. Allied, Welcome to Marwen, The Witches, and Pinocchio. I've only seen Pinocchio.
Okay.
I have not seen Allied, Welcome to Marwen, or The Witches, which all underperformed after the failure of The Walk. I termed his return in flight back to live action success. I now called this his it's over, many flops era.
Yeah.
And I feel rude in that we have to talk about it being his new flop era without me seeing them.
Yeah.
Which does that then infer why maybe it's the flop era? You know what I mean? It's the snake eating its tail?
So we bookend it. I've only seen Allied, so I have not seen. There was nothing that could have taken me to go see Welcome to Marwen after watching the trailer of that. I'm like, no, thank you. And then was The Witches. What was that? Was that a continuation of something else?
Well,
or reimagining?
Let's go in order. Let's talk to me about Allied, which I didn't see. I don't know Allied, but it looks like it's a genuine, serious adult film, as it were. Hard R. What is it? What's the genre? What's the plot? Is it good?
Yeah, historical.
Did you like it?
Historical drama, if you want to call that. It was okay. The idea.
Brad Pitt, Marion Cotillard, Jared Harris.
Yeah, and so he's with the whatever the Canadian Air Force is called. They have a name for him.
The Mounties.
He's a Canadian. He's a Canadian pilot. I don't think the Mounties were pilots, but
I don't know. I'm looking at this movie poster that you can't see, and he's wearing the red Mountie suit.
Oh, okay.
That's not true. I'm lying. He's wearing a tux.
You're blatantly lying.
Yeah.
But he goes to Casablanca, so it's Morocco.
No, the movie's Allied, not the movie. See what I did there? Because the movie Casablanca.
Yes, right. Yes, he does not go back to 70 years or whatever to. Anyway,
So it's about the movie Casablanca. Sorry,
yes, he runs into Humphrey Bogart. He has to assassinate a German ambassador, and he's partnered with a resistance fighter from France who is what's her name, Marion Cotillard.
Cotillard.
They
Yeah.
The part of their cover is they're posing as a married couple, but then also they become involved, and then
what an original take.
But then the
no one's done that before.
The quote unquote twist is that Brad Pitt starts to get intelligence that she might be a German spy, and then that's the back and forth. Is she? Okay. Isn't she? And it's just I don't know. I don't know if it's like a spoiler alert, but
I don't care. Just spoil. I'm not going to see it.
It's basically spoiler alert for
Allied.
He won't kill her. Like essentially, she has some German ties, but he won't kill her. He kills all the German handlers. And it's weird. It's like but then she ends up to get out of it. Mind. Yeah, you really don't.
I don't want to hear it.
It's hard to get out of it because she ends up like.
Listen, if I'm bored by you telling me about it, I don't want our listeners to be bored.
It's hard to explain at the end, because it gets all convoluted towards the end. I think that's what like makes it go meh. I thought it was an intriguing premise because it's like, oh, these two people are.
I can tell you, not a lot of other people thought it was an intriguing premise because with a $113 million budget, it only grossed $119 million, so it made $6 million. So I would like to note he has yet to have a movie that hasn't at least recouped its budget.
Okay.
I know that there's bombs, right? There's underperformers, and this is considered a box office bomb because it didn't make money. But you'll note he has yet to have a movie lose money.
Yep.
And I realize that that's a fine line.
Right.
But I would like to think that's also why he keeps getting the chance to make another movie.
Probably.
Yes, he also has a 15-year pedigree, but you can have a 15-year pedigree, but if you lose me $100 million, I'm not hiring you again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You have a 15-year pedigree, and you've yet to cost me money.
Right.
You know? So we'll keep moving down the line. So then we go to Welcome to Marwen. Oh, whoops, I spoke too soon. I knew that was coming. I'd looked up the budget in the box office.
Yeah.
So this is actually, in theory, kind of a small budget movie, right?
Okay.
Unfortunately, it was a very small grossing movie. It was a budget of $50 million, which you think of, that's such a small budget.
Yeah.
Now, like oh my God, it grossed $13 million.
Oof. Yeah.
And you're right, because I saw this trailer and I thought that looks fucking obnoxious. That looks pretentious and obnoxious.
Yeah.
And it's Steve Carell, and he's also got like a toy version of himself. I didn't see it. Did you see it?
No. So
here's the thing.
Can't really speak to that one that much, I guess.
We're going to read the plot synopsis together because neither of us saw this movie, and we just thought it looked terrible, right?
Yeah.
And there were animated segments and real life segments, and it maybe is in World War II. The poster is a wooden bench of Steve Carell sitting in his like World War II pilot's uniform, and a toy version of himself in that uniform looking up at him. And the tagline is, "You can't put this hero in a box."
Right.
And it's based on an inspirational true story from the director of Forrest Gump, starring Steve Carell in 2018. Was he still in The Office in 2018? When did The Office end? I don't fucking remember. I didn't remember. No, that was
right?
long gone.
Yeah.
That was long gone. Yeah, I don't remember. Time is a construct. It is inspired, by the way, by the 2010 documentary Marwen Call, which was also known as Village of the Dolls in the UK. It explores the life and work of an artist and photographer, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're just going to read the movie synopsis. Ready?
Go.
A World War II warplane piloted by a doll-like figure is hit by enemy fire and forced to ditch out. The pilot's shoes are burned in the landing. He finds women's shoes, which he wears instead. The pilot is confronted by doll-like German soldiers who taunt him for wearing women's shoes. And then the Germans emasculate him. This is revealed to be a scenario, part of an elaborate fantasy created by Mark Hogenkamp using modified dolls in a model village named Marwen. Okay, I'm already bored. Basically, it's he is using these dolls and fantasy sequences to deal with actual memory loss and post-traumatic stress disorder suffered from an attack that was then because he is a cross-dresser and was beat up by white supremacists. And he is using these dolls for his therapy. You see these segments as animated stop-motion doll segments as his therapy.
Gotcha.
Basically, I don't know how else to say this. I'm going to use the term heavy-handed. I can already tell this movie feels heavy-handed.
Right.
I don't want someone who's cross-dressing to be beaten up, but I get the feeling that we're going to be beaten over the head by the message of this movie.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
So,
okay.
But it's a box office bomb, music by Alan Silvestri.
Yeah.
But that says that's his first true, genuine bomb since the early 80s.
Yep.
That's in 2018, but he's still Robert fucking Zemeckis.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you'll note, I say it's a bomb. That wasn't a Marvel multi-million-dollar bomb. He made a movie for $50 million and it only grossed $13 million.
Right.
When you think about that kind of bomb, you look at the scale of the world and the scale of movies in 2018, that's a small, to use the term small bomb sounds silly, but you get my meaning, right? Yeah. That is a small scale production that lost small scale money, not Marvel fucking money.
Sure.
Then in 2020, you have a movie that probably, it's tough to gauge. It would have been a theatrical release, but you may have remembered what happened in the world in 2020.
Right.
You may recall.
Yep.
And in 2020 and 2021, any movie that would have been released that HBO Max, Warner Brothers, whoever could have had the rights to just went right to Max. So this became a Max original, even though it would have, in theory, been a theater film. But it's The Witches, starring Anne Hathaway, Stanley Tucci, Chris Rock, Octavia Spencer. I never took the time to see this one. I forgot it existed. That's what I said. This is one of the ones I never saw.
Likewise.
Let's take a look at the reception of it before we move on to talk about Pinocchio. It's a Pinocchio. So, I am leaving that apology in. I cut a lot of my apologies out. That one should stay.
Yeah.
Reception. It did have a limited release. It didn't do great. It was fine. Box office. It's hard. How do you can't judge a bomb in the COVID news. You know, I don't know what to say. It could have fucking blown the doors down. We don't know. I don't fucking know. We're not going to say what it would have done, you know? You can't judge it. You had Alan Silvestri back as music. Oh, okay, here we go. The best I can give you is with everything that was going on, and it became digital streaming. In November, Variety reported the film was the 9th most straight-to-streaming title for that year. So, for a year when everyone was streaming a fuck ton, I consider that a pretty good thing. I bet there is a lot of people who watched The Witches who probably have fond memories of The Witches, especially considering, you know, what it was about, where it's a, you know, family horror film. It's a Roald Dahl book, you know, they're going to Roald Dahl, screenplay by Guillermo del Toro, produced by del Toro and Zemeckis, directed by Zemeckis.
Gotcha.
Good pedigree. And in fact, reading that actually makes me want to watch it. I didn't realize that del Toro was involved. That really fascinates me. I didn't know much about this. I actually think I want to watch this movie now. And Kristen Chenoweth, you know, I'm in. I'm in. I sold.
All right. Oh, wow. We talked ourselves into it.
Also, you know, it's not stop motion fucking create. You know, it's a live action movie with special effects. I'm in, baby. I'm in.
Right.
Let's do this. But that brings us to his last movie to date before Here, coming out later this year. And apparently also has a movie called The King in development, but I don't know anything about that. We are going to talk about 2022's Pinocchio in that glut of Disney taking their films and making them live action movies, which please stop. I feel like, have they stopped now because they started bombing partly because of Pinocchio?
I hope so.
I was fascinated to see this based on the bad reviews, so I watched it.
Okay.
And yeah, it is soulless is what I call this movie. I call this movie a soulless movie. This you have Tom Hanks, you have Robert Zemeckis, and somehow we talked about how I felt he based his movie on heart. And that's how he worked well with Tom Hanks and all these things. And to me, I watch this movie and I don't feel any heart. It also, I'm not the only one. It received genuinely negative reviews from critics who found it unnecessary and lacking any charm, especially lacking charm of the original 40s film, criticized the writing, the changes. And yes, there were many changes. A lot of the things like, in the original one, or the classic Disney film, I should say.
Yeah.
Pinocchio does bad stuff and he gets turned into a donkey and all these things, right? He doesn't do that in this version. Pinocchio is a perfect child who just gets caught up in these scenarios. And it's like they whitewashed Pinocchio in the sense that they removed any stakes.
Jeez.
The stakes are he gets separated from his papa. And he doesn't do anything bad. He doesn't learn. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He seeks to learn about right and wrong, right? He has to learn about right and wrong so he can be a real boy. But he doesn't do anything wrong. He learns it by watching these other people do wrong. And it removes the entire message of what he was trying to learn. Why does he have a conscience when he doesn't do anything wrong? It's really ridiculous.
Disappointing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's bad. And also, so reading here, what fascinates me is finding out that Tom Hanks was attached and dropped out. He rejoined the project and he reached out to Zemeckis to come on and direct after the project had stagnated in development hell. They're teamed on this one and they're teaming up again for that Here movie that we've talked about. So I titled this new era, Let's Fuck Around with CG Again era.
Yeah.
Because we did Pinocchio and we're doing this. He's like, if I'm going to have all these flops, fuck it, I'm going to go back to fucking around with CG and have some fun. Work with my friend Tom. This movie came out in 2022. Oh, that's also why I can't find box office. They released this one straight to Disney Plus as a Disney Plus exclusive.
Gotcha.
It was a 2022 Disney Plus exclusive. And that's it until Here comes out later this. Until Here is here.
Yes.
That's it for the career of Robert Zemeckis.
Drag me kicking and screaming to the theater.
We're going to see it, motherfucker. We are going to see it. I would love for Here to be an amazing movie because I have such respect for his career and also such a respect for whatever I think of what he's done over the last 10 years or so, 10 to 15 years, post Polar Express. He's always kept trying.
Yep.
He's kept innovating. He's done new things. Whatever I think of the films, think about all the people who have stopped innovating and stopped trying and don't have the output he's tried to have into this point in his life. I would love for Here to blow me away because I would love for him to have a return to form like you did it. I don't think I see it based on the trailer, but I'm hopeful for it. I can't write it off because I want it to happen. I want Here to be good. I just don't think it's going to be.
We shall see.
Yeah. But on that note, we'll wrap it up. We'll do the usual plugs here, social media. I never update that Wait Are We Guys Friends pod page. It's too much work. I should just delete it. So I put 3 clips and deleted it. So what I'll say is my standard plug.
Yeah.
Find me, Mike Barcode, MikeBarcode, on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You'll find me anywhere. You'll find plugs for the show, clips for the show. You can reach out to me and comment. The YouTube page has all the episodes. If you're not looking for, if your podcast format isn't always your favorite regarding interfaces, like if you found us here and you're like, I can't do this all the time, go to the YouTube page. I watch and listen to so many podcasts. I'll ping pong between the podcast provider and the YouTube provider. If you're like, I like you guys, but I don't know if I can do this all the time here, guess what? You have another option. We're here for you. But also, if you have comments, criticism, thoughts, questions, concerns, whatever, Mike Barcode, MikeBarcode @gmail.com. You can reach out to us there. And, we appreciate anyone who takes the time. So with that, we will say thank you. Randy, anything?
Nope. Per usual, goodbye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Good. And I can now finally stop staring into the dead, glassy eyes of Randy as we record. I wanted to bring it back to that line, and I didn't know else how. I just love it. It's
dead, glassy eyes.
That's you. Okay, bye.